Hello. I feel like I haven't done one of these in a long time, but it's only been a week. Hi, I'm Shana Myers, aka the Paleo Counselor or the Root Healing Practitioner, depending on if you're on social media looking at some of the other resources that I put out there. I am an integrative health practitioner, an adjunct professor at Drake University, a research fellow at the Harvard Institute, and founder of the Paleo Counselor. And I wanted to talk today a little bit about adrenal fatigue and HPA-Axis dysregulation. I wrote an article last week about this and wanted to dive into it. Well, not dive into it, but just give you a little overview of what it is. I know since I posted that article, it's helped a couple people identify causes to some health conditions that were mysterious and they had been looking for answers for. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of who I typically see this in, and then how someone can heal and or work with me, depending on what modality they want to go around. So adrenal fatigue is a condition where the traditional medical model does not recognize. They do recognize adrenal insufficiency, or Addison's disease. That's complete, lack of cortisol. But low level adrenal fatigue or low energy is not picked up on the lab testing in the traditional medical model, which is kind of the case for a lot of conditions. This just the reference ranges are the cutoff points are too high and they're not broad enough. This is where I look to my colleagues in the integrative and functional medicine worlds and their guidance. And so, on one hand, you're going to have the traditional medical model that doesn't recognize this condition. They'll just say it's burnout, you're tired, or they'll diagnose the symptoms of you have anxiety, you have depression, you have insomnia. So they'll give you a band-aid fix. On the other side of the coin, you have my colleagues in the functional medicine and integrative worlds that are arguing about like the nuances, the labels, the title, or what to call this. Is it adrenal fatigue or is it HPA-Axis dysregulation? And so there's some arguments that's been in the last year that I've seen in that world. Chris Kresser just did an update on his research that he's done in adrenal fatigue and said, no, it's more, looks more like HPA-Axis dysregulation. Then I also look at Dr. Lamb's information because he focuses only on adrenal fatigue. And he's saying, no, it looks more like this. And so there's that argument. And then me being a trained counselor who trains counselors, we're most apt to look at HPA-Axis dysregulation. And for me, in my practice in the individuals that I serve, I usually see individuals that are experiencing a little bit of both. And that's how I treat it as an integrative health practitioner. And so for me, I don't like to get stuck in and really tied to labels because my practice is focused on root healing. And therefore, once the root is healed, it doesn't really matter what the label is, meaning that the diagnosis isn't sticky. However, I am so thankful for my practitioners in the functional medicine world because they are highlighting this issue and they're actually diving into it and getting and differentiating what this is. They aren't putting everything into a bucket. And so I highlight both ends of the spectrum to kind of show you, okay, this is where I have landed at. And I always reserve the right to be aware of new research and to have my stance change. The reality is, once this condition is treated in my practice, it goes away. This is a condition that I have experienced. It's a condition that 100% of mothers that come to me, I've noticed this in. With individuals with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, it's always par for the course, and here's why. It's because the adrenals are part of the endocrine system. And so with downregulation, the thyroid, so it starts at the pituitary gland, and then the thyroid and the adrenals, and the hormones. And so where you will typically see a balance or a misbalance, lack of homeostasis within this system, everything's kind of being affected from mood thyroid, adrenals, hormones. That system altogether, if one of those are out of balance, so is everything else within that system. So mood's going to be off. I wanted to highlight that. And so with the hormones, the downregulated of this, with infertility and pregnancy, you're going to have adrenal fatigue as well. On the other side of pregnancy, postpartum and motherhood, chronic stress, always adrenal fatigue. So I see this in mothers, in helpers, in individuals with autoimmunity, infertility, pregnancy, postpartum, infertility, um, and then stressed out workers of all kinds. So of all humans are just very, very stressed in our modern society, but I work a lot with a lot of helpers. So whether that be a therapist, another coach, another healthcare practitioner, I see a lot of nurses. I see a lot of individuals that caretake a lot of people. I work with a lot of founders, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of startup founders, CEOs, leaders. That's very tough work. And so burnout is always usually par for the course as well. And then I see people that are helpers and they are quiet and they've never put their needs first. And so I see a lot of helpers with adrenal fatigue and HPA-Axis dysregulation, and then empaths. So individuals that are highly sensitive or empathetic. That's another common a group of folks. So I have on my website, www.thepaleocounselor.com, I wrote an article and it has this infographic and it had some of the symptoms. So what I tend to do for a lot of my articles is I will put all of the symptoms that I find on multiple research articles. I also posted the research that most closely aligns the traditional medical model diagnosis of adrenal fatigue with infertility, just so that individuals can be aware. I do treat both couples with infertility with adrenal fatigue to have healthy hormones and get those going. So you can have just a couple symptoms with adrenal fatigue and still have it, and an HPA-Axis dysregulation. So all of the symptoms are on there. A lot of times it's just chronic fatigue, just full body symptoms, mood, inability to gain weight, especially around the waist. So storage of fat, inability to remember things, brain fog, just exhaustion, especially in the afternoon. And then waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to fall asleep, kind of that tired and wired feeling, a lot of GI issues. Sometimes people are misdiagnosed with fibromyalgia and it's adrenal fatigue. Not being able to recover from illnesses or exercise fast. I see this a lot with athletes, a lot of people that are elite athletes, or a lot of people are like, I'm not an elite athlete, but I work out in the gym 5 days a week and I'm stressed. I see adrenal fatigue in those populations as well. And so I like Dr. Lamb's infographic. Go to the website, take a look at that. And the other thing that I did put up is I integrated all of the different symptoms, and I put, so you can have just 2 symptoms and still have adrenal fatigue. So that's there. I'm just kind of scrolling through here, and I showed the HPA-Axis dysregulation, and so that's adrenals, the pituitary, the hypothalamus, which is in the brain. I could show you that, but we understand where the brain's at. And so it's that cycle of chronic fight or flight, getting stuck in that fight or flight, chronic stress is adrenal fatigue, and that is the diagnosis of that. So I put together your integrative toolkit to heal HPA-Axis and adrenal fatigue. So boundaries are going to be really, really important, especially with employment and working. Meditation, breath work, deep breathing, adaptogenic herbs. I have a recommendation for one of my favorite ones there. Moving your body on a regular basis with something that you enjoy. This is going to be really, really hard because in order to heal, you may have to rest for long periods of time. And this is hard for extreme endurance athletes that it just takes a while. And I purposely didn't put the length of time that it takes to heal from adrenal fatigue because if I write things like that, people will hold themselves to that and they will limit their healing potential. If you hold yourself to strict time frames or anyone's definition of healing, this is why I don't diagnose, why I don't label, because then you will limit your healing. And I purposely didn't put it there, and it takes as long as it takes. So lean into healing. So this may look like more yoga or walking, and not extreme exercise, not that hit. uh, you may just have to rest for a while, especially with like infertility and autoimmunity. And if you're starting to get sicker often, and just the respiratory infections aren't going away, definitely need to rest. A whole foods diet, again, not labeling and putting that there. I work with a lot of disordered eating and people that have had a lot of health conditions that they end up with disordered eating as a result of that. So we'll talk about that individually, but I'm not putting public information out there about that just because it's so prevalent in the work that I do. Getting outside in nature, this is also great for vitamin D levels. This is also tough in living in a northern climate. I have recommendations for these also on my website, on the tab of books, supplements, and products. I have a vitamin D recommendation. I've got an adaptogenic recommendation, sleep tips. I've got a link to that. That's probably the biggest ROI that you can get for your health, is getting your sleep in order. Reducing sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. Social support, toxin elimination, inner child and trauma work. That's also plays into HPA-Axis, dysregulation, magnesium, vitamin deficiency, and then playing and relaxing and those kinds of things. Okay, so here's the deal. Sometimes I put articles and information out there and people go on their healing way and they heal themselves. And this is all the work that I'm doing, is to ignite your inner healer inside of you so you can embrace it, unleash it, and heal yourself. Sometimes individuals want me to walk alongside them for a short term on their healing journey, and that's who partners with me. So if that's you, or you have questions, we can schedule a free 15-minute consult on all of my social media pages. I'm available there to schedule a free 15-minute phone consult. So provide your phone number and an email address if I can't get a hold of you. And also the other thing that I do is I send out monthly newsletters, and inside those newsletters is information I'll put anywhere. So last month I gave out a couple of anxiety tools for the whole family and just some insider information. So I want to keep these a little bit shorter so that are more accessible. Please share these with individuals. There's a lot of people looking for the answers to root causes and mysterious illnesses. I just spoke with someone last week and she had spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on medical tests and treatments, and did this sleep study and went all over the place to see all these different doctors, and it was adrenal fatigue. And so you never know what someone's struggling with. You never know who is looking for this information. And so individuals sometimes are able to use what I put out there to move them in a direction of healing without ever even talking to me. And I think that is so neat, to be able to put that together, because it's just like that one little thing, like, oh yeah, that's it. Okay. So I wanted to leave that here. These are my Wellness Wednesday videos. If you have questions, let me know. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you and goodbye. If I can stop this.